When Mabel first met Gerard, she thought life had finally handed her the gift she had been praying for. He was everything a young woman could dream of. Tall, well-groomed, and always smelling of expensive cologne. He carried himself with a quiet confidence that made people notice him without trying too hard. They met at a cousin's wedding in Owerri. Mabel, who had just finished her youth service, was sitting shyly with a few of her girlfriends when Gerard walked in, commanding attention with his grip suit and graceful walk. Unlike most men, he didn't rush to the dance floor or turn his head unnecessarily. He simply took his seat and observed the crowd with a calm smile. Yet, somehow, everyone was drawn to him. Mabel's younger cousin introduced them casually, but from that moment, Gerard became the talk of her heart. He spoke with intelligence, asked her questions about her goals, and seemed genuinely interested in her answers. Gerard was not a man of many words, but he had the way of making silence feel safe. He never pushed too hard and he never overstepped boundaries. He called her queen in a tone so natural that it made her blush. Within months, their friendship blossomed into something that looked like love. To her friends, Gerard was the man every mother prayed her daughter would marry. By the following year, he had proposed. The engagement was nothing short of magical. A candlelit dinner, a ring that glittered under the lights, and a promise that sounded like forever. Mabel, he said sweetly as he slipped the ring onto her finger. I don't just want you. I need you because you are my peace and my home. Tears rolled down her cheeks as the entire restaurant clapped. The wedding was even more grand. It was held in a decorated green garden with a choir singing hymns that brought goosebumps. Gerard blushed as Mabel walked in on her father's arm, and every guest whispered about how perfect they looked together. Mabel's parents beamed with pride. Her mother whispered a prayer of thanksgiving, believing her daughter had secured a future filled with joy. Her friends envied her, secretly wishing they had found a man so responsible, so caring, and so charming. From the outside, everything looked flawless. Gerard was attentive. He held her hand throughout the reception and he whispered promises of a lifetime into her ear. The pictures told the story of pure happiness. To the world, Mabel and Gerard had become the picture of love. But if anyone had looked closely enough, they would have noticed that Gerard's eyes wandered more often than they should have. Not at the bridesmaids and not at the women dancing, but at the men who had come in sleek suits and firm handshakes. Mabel didn't notice. She was lost in the euphoria of becoming a wife. The first few months of marriage only deepened her belief that she had married the right man because Gerard was disciplined, neat and organized. He made sure she never lacked anything. He showered her with compliments, told her she was beautiful even when she was tired, and always made her feel secured. Gerard, she would say sometimes as they lay in bed, "Thank you for choosing me." And he would smile, kiss her forehead and reply, "Queen, you don't know how much I needed you." But unknown to Mabel, Gerard's definition of need was different from hers. Where she thought of need as love and companionship, he saw it as a strategy and fulfillment of a plan he had mapped out long before she entered his life. Gerard wanted children, 3 of them to be precise. To him, marriage was not about passion, intimacy, or devotion. It was about building a facade of normalcy, a cover for the secret life he had always lived. And Mabel, innocent and trusting, was the perfect vessel for that plan. The cracks were invisible at first. Their home was filled with laughter and warmth. Gerard played the role of a caring husband so well that even Mabel's doubts, those small fleeting moments when she felt he was holding something back, were silenced by his charm. She told everyone that she had married her soulmate. At family gatherings, her sisters teased her about being spoiled by her husband. In the society, people pointed them out as the perfect example of a godly couple. Mabel believed it all. She wore her new title, Mrs. Gerard Okwara with pride, never once suspecting that beneath the perfect beginning was a secret waiting to erupt like a volcano. In those early days, when she looked into Gerard's eyes, all she saw was her future. A man, a marriage, and the children they will raise together. What she didn't see and what she couldn't imagine was that Jira's heart was never in the marriage. His love was elsewhere, hidden in shadows and waiting for the right time to come out. By their third month together, he had already begun hinting about children. Darling, he said one evening in the middle of the discussion, his voice calm but firm. What do you think about having our first child soon? Mabel blushed. She had imagined raising children with him, but thought they would enjoy each other a little longer. So soon? She asked. Don't you think we should wait? Maybe travel together and enjoy the marriage first? Jira shook his head with a gentle smile. Marriage is sweetest when children come early. I don't want us wasting time at all. Let's start now. I want my children to grow with me, not after me. His reasoning sounded wise. Mabel, raised in a family that valued fruitfulness in marriage, found no reason to object, so they got to work. Within a few months, she was pregnant with her first child. Gerard was thrilled, or at least he appeared to be. He pampered her during pregnancy, and everyone praised him for being such a supportive husband. When their first child, a baby boy, arrived, Gerard celebrated with the pride of a man who had just won a medal. He bought gifts, invited friends, and beamed as visitors congratulated him. Mabel's joy overflowed. Holding her newborn in her arms, she felt she had everything. A caring husband, a healthy child, and a home full of love. She didn't notice the impatience already brewing in Jira's heart. Barely 3 months after delivery, while Mabel was still adjusting to sleepless nights and aching from recovering, Jira started again. Queen, he said one night as she cradled the baby to sleep. It's time we think about another child. You know I want 3, right? Mabel looked at him stunned. Gerard, I just gave birth. My body hasn't even healed properly. Can't we wait? But Gerard was unyielding. Children are blessings. Let's not delay. I want them close in age. That way they will grow together and support each other, and then we'll finish our childbearing early. Isn't that better? He spoke with such certainty that Mabel found herself nodding even though she was exhausted. By the following year, she gave birth again. This time, it was a girl. Gerard acted overjoyed, lifting the child high in the air and calling her his princess. Yet, even before Mabel could recover fully, he was back with the same request. Queen, one more, one last one. Let's complete the circle. I promised myself 3 children and then we will rest. Please, let's do this. Mabel hesitated. Her body was tired, her spirits weary, but Jira's insistence was overwhelming. He painted a picture of a complete family. 3 children, a perfect balance, and then peace. He promised that afterward they would travel, explore, and focus on each other. And so, against her better judgment, Mabel agreed. By the 3rd year of marriage, she was pregnant again. The news shocked her mother. Mabel, my daughter, slow down, her mother pleaded during a visit. Childbearing is not a race. Take care of yourself too and don't let this man wear you out. But Mabel defended him. Mama, Gerard just loves children. He says it's better to have them now and rest later. Her mother shook her head, unconvinced. A man who loves you will also protect your health. Still, Mabel clung to her husband's words, blind to the deeper truths behind them. When the 3rd child arrived, Gerard threw the biggest celebration yet. He stood tall, proud and content. To him, The mission was complete. He had what he wanted, but to Mabel, something felt different. For the first time, she noticed that Jira's kisses had grown colder and his touches less frequent. The man who once reached for her in the middle of the night now turned his back with the excuse of being tired. At first, she told herself it was normal. After all, 3 children in 3 years could make any human tired. But deep inside, a small fear was born. A fear that the husband who had rushed her into motherhood was no longer interested in being her partner. What she didn't know was that with each birth, Gerard was ticking boxes on a secret list. He had played the role of a loving husband just long enough to secure the children he desired. Now, the mask was slowly beginning to slip. By the time their third child turned 6 months old, Mabel began to notice it more. He started making real excuses. Work has been overwhelming. I need to wake up tomorrow. Can't we just rest this night? She tried everything to rekindle the spark. One evening, she wore the same perfume she had used on their honeymoon. She waited in the bedroom. Gerard walked and glanced at her briefly and muttered, "You should sleep early. You'll be tired tomorrow with the kids." Then he turned off the lights and went to bed. Mabel laid awake in the dark, blinking back tears. That was the night she realized something was terribly wrong. Days turned into weeks, and the denial of intimacy continued. Gerard was present in the house by providing for the family, playing with the children, and fixing bills, but absent from her heart. He had become more than a roommate than a husband. Mabel confided in her friend Clara one afternoon. They sat in the living room while the children napped. "Clara, I don't understand Gerard anymore," she whispered with her voice shaking. "He avoids me like I carry a disease. He hasn't touched me in months." Clara frowned. "Are you sure? Maybe he's just stressed with work. Men go through phases." "No, it's more than stress," Mabel insisted. "It's like he's no longer interested in me at all. Sometimes I even wonder if I've lost my beauty." Clara reached for her hand. "Mabel, don't blame yourself. You are beautiful and any man can see it. Maybe you should talk to him, open up about how you feel." Mabel nodded, but her heart sank. She had tried. Each time she brought it up, Gerard dismissed her. One night, she gathered courage again. "Gerard," she called out softly, "are you angry with me? Did I do something wrong? You have been distant." Gerard sighed and shook his head. "Why do you always think too much? I am not angry. I am just tired. You worry over nothing." "But months have passed, Gerard. You don't come close to me anymore." Instead of answering, he sat up and snapped. "Must everything in this marriage revolve around doing it? Can't a man be tired? Is that also a crime?" Mabel froze. His words cut deep and she shrank back ashamed. For days after that, she avoided the subject. Still, her spirit refused to rest. She watched him more closely, searching for clues. She noticed he was spending more time outside the house. He often claimed to have late meetings, weekend conferences, or urgent work trips. He began protecting his phone, stepping outside to take calls and leaving the room with his laptop. Mabel's heart was restless. At night, while rocking the baby, she whispered silent prayers. "God, please show me what is wrong with my husband. If I've offended him, touch his heart to forgive me, and if it's something else, reveal it to me." Her body ached, not just from childbearing, but from rejection. She longed for her husband's affection, for his arms around her, and for his laughter in her ears. But instead, she met words, cold silence, and excuses that sounded rehearsed. One day at the market, her mother pulled her aside. "My daughter, are you okay? You don't look happy." Mabel forced a smile. "I am fine, Mama, just tired from the children." Her mother studied her face but let it go. Mabel couldn't bring herself to confess. How How could she admit that the marriage everyone envied was crumbling behind closed doors? The more Gerard withdrew, the harder Mabel tried. She cooked his favorite meals, left sweet notes in the briefcase, and even planned a surprise birthday dinner, but Gerard barely reacted. He thanked her politely like a stranger saying thank you to a waiter, then went back to his phone. The turning point came one night when she reached for his hand in bed. He pulled away instantly as though her touch burned him. Gerard, she whispered, her throat tightening. Do you still love me? There was a long silence. Then he exhaled and said, Mabel, please don't start again. I am here, or am I not? I provide for you and the children. What exactly do you want from me again? She turned away with tears rolling down her face. She realized that what she wanted, his affection, his intimacy and his love was something he no longer had to give. But Mabel was not a woman who gave up easily. If Gerard had locked her out of his heart, she was determined to find the key. She began paying closer attention to his patterns. She noted the weekends he traveled, the conferences that always seemed to fall on the same dates, the hotel receipts she sometimes found in his trouser pockets. Her instinct told her something was wrong. Not just wrong, but terribly wrong, but she couldn't yet put a name to it. It affected her so much because she had always been the kind of woman who trusted too easily. She grew up in a home where love was open, where her father never hid his affection for her mother, and where problems were discussed, not buried. But now, in her own marriage, she felt like she was living with a stranger. The rejection had become a routine. Gerard was attentive to the children, polite to her in public, and generous with money. But intimacy, it had vanished. The man who once couldn't keep his hands off her now treated her like a fragile piece of furniture, useful but not to be touched. She began to blame herself. She started scrutinizing every part of her body. Maybe childbirth ruined me. Maybe I've added too much weight and maybe I'm no longer attractive. She bought new clothes, changed her hairstyle, even switched perfumes, but nothing worked. And on weekends, it was always a conference or a seminar out of town. But there was something about those conferences that troubled Mabel. They were too frequent, too predictable, and always around the same time each year. One weekend, after he left, she walked into their bedroom. On the dresser laid a hotel receipt tucked carelessly into his wallet. Her heart pounded. She picked it up with trembling hands. A luxury hotel downtown. The date matched one of his so-called work conferences. Mabel sat on the edge of the bed staring at the receipt. Her thoughts raced. Could Gerard be cheating with another woman? The idea pierced her heart, but strangely, it didn't fully add up. She had never seen him flirt with women. Even at gatherings, his eyes rarely lingered on them. Instead, he seemed more at ease around men, laughing, whispering and exchanging long handshakes that looked deeper than normal. That was when the restlessness began. Mabel, once a calm wife, became an investigator. She started watching Gerard's movements closely. She noticed that before each conference, he grew unusually cheerful and almost excited. He would polish his shoes, iron his shirts himself, and even home while packing. And when he returned, he carried a strange glow, not the glow of a man stressed from meetings, but of someone fulfilled. Mabel's suspicion grew sharper. She began checking his phone, and Gerard on his part was careful but not flawless. He often deleted messages, but once she caught a notification pop up before he could hide it. It was from a man named Victor with a heart emoji at the end. Her chest tightened. She tried to open the message, but Gerard snatched the phone and backed. Why are you snooping around my things? Mabel stammered. I was only trying to check the time. He glared at her, his jaw tight, and then he hissed, Respect my privacy, woman. Then he stormed out, leaving her shaking. From that day, she knew something was deeply wrong, and the restlessness in her spirit refused to let her rest. She started following him discreetly. The first attempt was a failure. She hired a cab to trail his car, but he drove too fast, weaving through traffic until she lost sight of him. But Mabel was not discouraged. The second time, she dressed in a simple gown, tied a scarf, and carried a bag of groceries to disguise herself. She told her neighbor she was going to the market, but instead, she waited near the junction until Gerard drove past. She quickly boarded a tricycle and told the rider to follow the silver Camry at a distance. Her heart pounded the entire ride. The vehicle finally pulled into a hotel compound. Mabel's breath caught in her throat. She watched Gerard step out looking almost too relaxed and too happy. A tall man in white shirt was waiting for him at the entrance. They embraced, too tightly and too warmly for just friends. Mabel wanted to scream. She wanted to run forward and demand answers, but disbelief held her back. Or perhaps the hope that she was misinterpreting what she saw. She stayed hidden, watching them disappear into the hotel lobby, and her whole world spun. That night, she couldn't sleep. She replayed the scene again and again in her mind. Gerard with the man, the embrace, the receipts, and the phone message. Could it be true? Could it be that my husband? Tears slipped silently down her cheeks even before she completed that thought. She felt like a fool and like her whole marriage had been built on lies. She thought back to the early days, the way he rushed her into pregnancies, the sudden withdrawal afterward, the excuses and the guided phone. It all began to fit like pieces of a puzzle she never wanted to solve. She had convinced herself she could endure anything if only Gerard would one day explain. She still hoped foolishly that perhaps she was wrong, that her eyes had deceived her, and that her fears were born from exhaustion. But when the annual work conference came around again, she knew it was time to stop doubting and confront reality. Gerard packed his bags with unusual excitement, whistling as he folded his shirts. He selected his finest shoes, his slickest shirts, even the column he rarely wore at home. Mabel sat quietly on the edge of the bed, watching him and observing with the eye of a hawk. "Queen," he said warmly, "I'll be gone for just 4 days. Take care of yourself and the kids, and don't stress yourself for me. I will call you every night." Mabel forced a smile. "Safe trip, my love. May God go with you." He kissed her forehead lightly and left. But Mabel was no longer the same naive woman she had been. This time, she was ready. The next morning, after dropping the children at school, she changed into something very comfortable and tucked her phone into her handbag. She hired a cab and told the driver to drive her down to the hotel she had discovered weeks before. By the time she arrived, Gerard's car was already parked neatly at the lot. She became confused as she stepped out. She lingered outside for nearly 30 minutes, battling herself. What if I'm wrong? What if it's just business? What if I walk in there and disgrace myself? But the image of Gerard's warm embrace with the strange man refused to leave her head. Finally, she drew a deep breath and walked inside. The hotel was elegant, filled with fresh lilies, and she was so able to explain herself with no doubt to the receptionist that she was the man's wife. She was allowed to go into room 306. And as she knocked the door, it was her husband who asked her to come in. Mabel's eyes glittered across the room until they landed on him. Gerard, her husband, was sitting in a corner and he was not alone. Beside him sat the same tall man she had seen earlier. Their heads were close together, a gesture so intimate that made Mabel's stomach to turn. Her vision blurred, and for a moment she thought she would collapse. She gripped her handbag tightly, her legs trembling as she walked towards them. Every step felt like wading through fire. When she reached the center of the room, both men looked up. Gerard's smile froze, his jaw stiffening, but he didn't flinch or move his hand. The other man leaned back casually, unbothered, as though this moment was nothing unusual. "Gerard," Mabel's voice cracked, her eyes burning with tears. What is this? For the first time, Jira's mask slipped completely. He exhaled slowly, then leaned back in his chair. His expression was bold, even arrogant. What is this? He repeated, his tone calm but sharp. Mabel, don't act surprised. Is it a new thing? Are you just finding out? The words hit her like a slap. She stood frozen, staring at the man she had called her husband, the father of her 3 children, and the man she had trusted with her whole heart. Gerard leaned forward, his voice lowering but firm. I needed children, and you gave them to me. Don't make this a drama, and don't act like you didn't benefit. You are living in comfort, aren't you? What more do you want? Mabel almost fainted. She located the wall to steady herself. Her throat tightened as tears welled up, but before she could even speak, Gerard leaned back with an expression that chilled her to the bone. Mabel, he said casually, his eyes locked on hers. Don't start what you can't finish. Sit down, let me order something for you to eat so you can go back home. I will meet you when I'm done here. Mabel swallowed hard, fighting the scream rising in her chest. Every muscle in her body wanted to explode. It wanted to shout and to drag him out in shame, but she froze, her mind racing and her spirit torn between collapse and rage. She steadied herself. Her hands were brutally shaking, but her voice came out low and clear. I will not shout here, but I want you to note that I will never be silenced. Jira's eyes hardened. Mabel? No, she cut in. You will listen. For a bit, the 3 of them sat in a small island of silence. Mabel's gaze moved to the other man. And you? She whispered. Do you have a wife? And do you also have children? The man's mouth curved. My personal life is not your business. It became my business, Mabel said, the day you sat your body into my husband's place. Jira's jaw tightened. Woman, enough. She turned to him. You used me. You rushed me into 3 pregnancies so you could take your bosses and go back to your real life. You planned this from the very beginning. And so what? I gave you comfort and everything you need. So my friend, go home. Something in her broke, so she brought out her phone and wanted to snap them. The man beside Gerard laughed under his breath. What are you doing? Evidence for your village women, right? Mabel's eyes were wet but steady, and then she said, it is an evidence for myself, so that I will never again doubt what I saw with my own eyes. Gerard leaned forward and said in a commanding tone, Mabel, if you don't want to be a victim of all the stories you have read online, then don't do it. Well, let's just say escaping from that hotel room that day was a miracle. So by asking my dear besties, imagine discovering that the man you call husband never truly loved you, that you were only a tool to give him children. What will you do? Run, fight, or expose him to the world? Kindly drop your thoughts with me in the comments as I would love to read them. But I can tell you for free that Mabel's next move will shock you to your bones. So please anticipate the part 2 of the story. Give it a thumbs up, share out to your loved ones, and if you have not subscribed to this channel, kindly punch on that subscribe button so that you can join the Karma tribe. Until I bring the next episode of the story your way, it's a goodbye from here, and God bless you.